Jungkook and Taehyung cancel a sold-out show after uncovering abuse of local crew, sparking a global reckoning in the entertainment industry. He collapsed again. The shout echoed across the cavernous stadium like a gunshot, piercing through the thunder of bass and the rhythmic stomps of rehearsal. The LED panels were still pulsing with light when the boy's body hit the floor. The crew member was young, barely more than a teenager, dressed in a threadbare hoodie, eyes darkened by fatigue. His fingers twitched as he lay there, motionless, just beside the central lighting rig. The text froze. The music stopped. The tension snapped like a guitar string pulled too tight. Taehyung was the first to move, leaping down from the stage and sprinting toward the fallen boy. Jungkook followed, ripping off his in-ear monitors, chest heaving not from dance, but dread. Hey, can you hear me? Taehyung crouched down, cradling the boy's head with practiced care. The kid barely managed a whisper, but the words burned hotter than any spotlight. 18 hours a day. No pay, just food. Leftovers. Taehyung looked up, stunned. Jungkook stood above them, fist clenched, breathing hard. Then his gaze shifted to Park, their manager, standing nearby with a pale face and tight lips. Is this true? Jungkook asked, but there was no need for an answer. The silence was deafening. That night, instead of continuing rehearsal, the two idols sat in a sterile hotel conference room, surrounded by agitated executives and a promoter who looked like he'd just been served his own funeral invitation. The walls felt like they were closing in. No one had expected this, a potential disaster hours before their biggest concert of the tour. You're overreacting, the promoter growled. This is just how things work here. You think you're going to fix an entire country's labor system in one night? Jungkook said nothing at first. He was watching the reflection of the room in the window glass, the city beyond shimmering under sodium lights, oblivious. Taehyung, meanwhile, stood with arms crossed, his voice calm, measured, and deadly. If you can afford to book stadiums, pay for fireworks, fly in special guests, and print 500,000 shirts, then you can pay the people who build the damn stage. A flurry of objections rose around them. Legal threats, PR concerns, words like damage control and contractual obligation. Then Jungkook turned back to the room and spoke with a voice that brooked no argument. If we sing tonight, we're complicit. We'll become part of the machine that crushes the people backstage. And we refuse. The room erupted into chaos. Their manager tried to play mediator. There are ways to fix this after the show. Quietly. You don't have to do it this way. Jungkook shook his head slowly. We sing about love, about justice. If we look the other way now, every lyric we've ever sung becomes a lie. Taehyung didn't speak again. He just stared out the window, eyes burning with something deeper than anger. Something like memory. When Taehyung was 11, his father came home with bloodied hands after a concert, worked 3 days straight building stages without rest or recognition. That man never asked for justice. But now, his son had a voice that echoed in stadiums across the globe. The cancellation hit the public like a meteor. Hours before the gates were set to open, a statement appeared on the venue's massive screen. Tonight's concert is canceled at the request of the artists. We apologize for the inconvenience. Online chaos exploded instantly. Fan forums went nuclear. News outlets raced to cover the fallout. Some fans cried betrayal. Others cheered in awe. But the most powerful moment happened behind closed curtains. The same crew member, still pale, still weak, was sitting quietly on a folding chair when Jungkook approached him again. This time, there were no lights, no cameras, just a silent exchange between two humans. The boy tried to stand, but Jungkook knelt beside him and took his hand. Thank you, the boy whispered, for seeing us. Jungkook gave him a quiet smile. This is just the beginning. It started with a smear campaign. By the time the sun rose the next morning, the headlines were everywhere. Prima donnas walk out. BTS members cancel concert over feelings. Thousands stranded after sudden concert cancellation, fans demand refunds. Sources claim Jungkook and Taehyung were emotionally unstable before show. It was fast, brutal, and surgical, clearly orchestrated. Within hours, anonymous insiders appeared on talk shows, tabloids pushed photos from months ago, and hashtags calling them #selfish idols trended worldwide. The machinery of media was turning, greased by money and desperation. Jungkook stood in the hotel hallway, scrolling through the chaos on his phone. His jaw was locked. Every swipe showed a new betrayal. Former colleagues, old collaborators, people who once called him brother, were now hurling him under the bus for a few minutes of airtime. He didn't speak until Taehyung appeared beside him, holding 2 paper cups of lukewarm coffee. He offered one wordlessly. "They're coming for us," Jungkook muttered, not looking away from the screen. "They were always going to," Taehyung replied. "Just not this soon." There was a long pause. Then Taehyung's eyes narrowed. "You know what this means, right?" Jungkook finally looked up. "We hit a nerve." Inside a glass tower in the city's wealthiest district, executives from the local promoters sat with government advisors and legal teams, panicking. This wasn't just about one concert. Jungkook and Taehyung's protest had lit a fuse under something far deeper: decades of labor abuse, buried payments, forged reports, and political protection. They had expected an apology, a retraction, some carefully worded statement from the label to sweep it all away. But then came the video, a 53-second clip shot on a crew member's phone, uploaded anonymously. It showed a worker backstage, his hands bandaged, recounting how he'd been denied medical treatment after a lighting rig burned him. His voice was calm, but his eyes were tired. At the end of the video, he said, "They told us we were lucky to work near stars. That should be enough." The video exploded. Overnight, it gained 30 million views. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. International labor rights organizations picked it up. Other crew members from different shows began speaking out. A technician from a recent world tour in South America revealed unpaid overtime. A female dancer posted a thread about verbal abuse during rehearsals for a major pop star. The house of cards was collapsing. Meanwhile, back at the hotel, Jungkook and Taehyung were summoned to a private meeting with their agency's top executives. The mood was colder than any rehearsal hall. "You need to release a joint statement," said Director Lim, voice clipped. "Say it was a miscommunication, a misunderstanding. Offer to reschedule the concert quietly." "No," Taehyung said, without hesitation. Lim's jaw twitched. "Your careers are at stake." Jungkook leaned forward. "Maybe they should be." Lim slammed a folder onto the table. Inside were contracts, penalties, numbers designed to make anyone fold. But Jungkook barely glanced at them. "Do you know why we became singers?" he asked quietly. "It wasn't for this. Not to sell lies and glitter and call it art. You think you're heroes?" Lim spat. "You're idols. You dance. You smile. That's your job." Taehyung's voice was like a blade. "Then maybe it's time we change what that job means." Outside the building, fans had begun to gather. Not to protest, not to riot, but to stand silent, holding signs not of anger, but solidarity. "We stand with the crew. Justice before music. Let them rest. Let them live." One by one, idols from other groups began speaking out. A rapper posted a single sentence, "I've seen it too." A veteran actress wrote a blog post about her early years when she'd sleep in the wardrobe department between shoots. The industry was cracking. That night, in their room overlooking the city, Taehyung sat on the edge of the bed, guitar in hand. He strummed absent-mindedly, the melody soft, unfinished. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" he asked, not looking up. Jungkook sat on the floor, back against the window. He looked exhausted, his hoodie rumpled, his voice low. "I don't know if it's right, but I know it's real." Then he pulled out a notebook and began writing lyrics, messy and raw, bleeding out from his heart. "A stage built on broken backs is a song I refuse to sing." The episode ended not with noise, but with silence. A studio left abandoned. A stage gone dark. And somewhere, deep in the system, a crack widening into something irreversible. The leak came from inside. 3 days after the cancellation, a whistleblower uploaded a folder labeled, "For those who refuse to look away." It hit the internet like wildfire. Voice memos, internal emails, contracts, evidence of years of wage theft, manipulated safety logs, and gag orders. One file included a recorded conversation between 2 senior executives. "No one pays these workers. We just rotate them every city so it doesn't trace back. If they collapse, replace them. They're not the stars. They're shadows." The world heard every word. Hashtags flipped overnight from outrage to revolution. Journalists swarmed the city. International watchdogs arrived. And while the company scrambled for damage control, Jungkook and Taehyung disappeared from the public eye. Not for retreat, but for strategy. They met quietly with workers, lawyers, activists. Jungkook, fueled by guilt and purpose, couldn't sleep. Taehyung stopped writing music altogether until one night, he scribbled on a hotel napkin, "We perform again when justice takes the stage first." It became a rallying cry, but with exposure came danger. One of the whistleblowers, an assistant producer, was found unconscious in his apartment. Official reports called it an accident. Jungkook didn't buy it. That night, Taehyung received an anonymous message. "Stop, or we stop you." The industry, now cornered, was biting back. Their agency offered them a way out. Go silent, return for a global rebranding tour, and everything gets fixed. Jungkook looked the CEO in the eye. "We don't want clean. We want truth." Meanwhile, something remarkable happened. Other artists joined. Quietly at first, then louder. A girl group posted photos with their crew, calling them the real stars. A soloist released a track titled Backstage Blood, naming names. And at the center of it all, two voices, Jungkook and Taehyung, remained firm, not as celebrities, but as catalysts. Their absence made more noise than any song. Then, 2 months later, the unthinkable happened. The country's Ministry of Labor passed an emergency regulation. All crew members, local or international, were now protected by a minimum wage law and capped work hours, enforceable by criminal statute. The entertainment giants had lost. On a summer night thick with wind and electric hope, the concert was finally rescheduled. Same stadium, same crew. But this time, things were different. Each worker wore a badge with their name, their stories, their hours. Before the first note, Taehyung walked on stage and took the mic. "You were told they didn't matter. But tonight, they take the first bow." One by one, the crew was called up. Each name met with louder applause than the last. Jungkook stood beside them, voice steady. "We don't sing for crowds. We sing for change." They performed that night not for fans, not for fame, but for something bigger than music. When the final chorus echoed into the sky, the entire stadium stood, not just in ovation, but in transformation. The applause was still ringing in the air when Taehyung noticed it. A note, folded in half, slipped just beneath his mirror in the green room, tucked between the makeup brushes and the bouquet someone had left with a card that simply read, "For the brave." But this note was different. There was no signature, no sender, just a single line, typed in an old-style typewriter font. "Justice is never clean. Some of us are still watching." Taehyung froze. His fingers tightened around the paper. The mirror's lights buzzed faintly above him, and for a second, the room felt colder, quieter. He read the line again, then flipped the paper over. Blank. Jungkook was still outside with the crew, his arm around one of the lighting technicians who had helped rig the stage that night. The stadium was finally emptying 60,000 hearts lighter. But backstage, something had shifted. Taehyung tucked the note into his jacket pocket and stepped out. They were supposed to have a night of peace. Celebration. A private after-party for the crew, artists, and organizers who had helped turn protest into performance. Instead, Jungkook found Taehyung standing in the corner of the rooftop bar, silent, staring down at the city with storm cloud eyes. "What's wrong?" Taehyung handed him the note. Jungkook read it, once, then again. A long silence passed. "We knew they wouldn't give up," Jungkook said finally. "Not all of them. Someone was in our room. Backstage." While we were on stage, Taehyung muttered. "Someone with access." Jungkook exhaled slowly. "Then it's someone on the inside." That night, they checked security logs, surveillance footage, access lists. But something was off. One camera, the one pointed at the green room hallway, had been disabled manually for exactly 14 minutes. The same 14 minutes Taehyung was on stage alone, introducing the crew. A coincidence? Unlikely. When they confronted the venue's head of security, he seemed nervous. Not afraid of Jungkook or Taehyung, but of someone else. "I'll look into it," he stammered. "Could have been a tech issue. Happens all the time." Jungkook narrowed his eyes. "Then why hasn't it happened once in the last 5 shows?" No answer. The next day, a private message appeared on Taehyung's encrypted line, the one only a handful of people knew existed. It was a photo, a grainy still of the green room mirror. And in the reflection, a figure in a black hoodie, faceless, half turned toward the camera. The caption read, "Don't forget who built this stage before you." Jungkook stared at it for a long time. "This isn't about the crew," he said finally. "It's someone else. Someone who lost something when we pulled back the curtain." Taehyung sat down slowly, shoulders tense. "They're not just angry," he said. "They're planning something. The stakes were supposed to be behind them. The war won. But with one anonymous note, the game had changed. Again, now the threat wasn't systemic abuse. It was personal. Hidden in the industry's shadows was someone with a score to settle, and they'd just made their first move. The file wasn't supposed to exist. Hidden deep in the server of a long-defunct production company, buried under layers of dummy folders labeled Lighting Presets 2017, and Old Tour Archives was a zip file named simply Finale. Jungkook found it by accident. He and Taehyung had spent the past 4 nights scouring internal systems for anomalies, trying to trace the green room breach. A cyber specialist from a fan-run justice collective had offered to help. She called herself Echo, and she was barely 20. But her skills were surgical. "This file doesn't belong to the others," she said over the call. "It's encrypted, but the structure, it's like someone wanted it found." Eventually, Jungkook looked at Taehyung, who gave a single nod. "Open it." Inside was a spreadsheet. Rows upon rows of names, some faded, some redacted, many with notes like blackballed after union remarks, terminated after whistleblowing, unreliable, too vocal, caution advised, stage collapse survivor, do not rehire, missing since 2014, no follow-up. Taehyung scrolled until his fingers froze. There, halfway down the list, under a tab labeled Level 4 Risk, High Influence, High Disobedience, was a name both of them recognized. Han Myri. She was a rising soloist a decade ago. Talented, bold, and one of the first to speak out publicly about abuse toward dancers and background staff. Her last concert ended abruptly mid-performance. She vanished soon after. No media, no rumors, just silence. "They said she moved to the countryside," Jungkook muttered. "Retired. Depression." But the note beside her name told another story. Asset neutralized. No future risk. Monitor next of kin. Flagged. Last seen backstage, June 6, 2015. Taehyung's voice dropped. "What the hell does neutralized mean?" Echo chimed in, voice tense. "It means they made sure she couldn't speak again, one way or another." That night, they drove hours out of the city, following the last known address linked to Myri. A quiet, rust-stained house in the middle of rice fields. Forgotten by the world. Swallowed by silence. When they knocked, there was no answer. But the porch light flicked on. An old woman opened the door, not Myri, but her mother. Wrinkled hands. Distant eyes. But when she saw Taehyung's face, something softened. "I used to hear her play your songs," she whispered. "She said you were different." They sat together under the single kitchen light. The house smelled of ginger tea and dust. "My daughter was brave," the mother said. "Too brave. She didn't disappear. They made her disappear. But she's alive." Taehyung's heart skipped. Jungkook leaned forward, voice urgent. "Where is she?" The old woman hesitated. Then she slid a small piece of paper across the table. On it, a name, an address, a location far off the grid, North Coast, a place known for keeping secrets. "She won't talk to anyone," the mother said. "But maybe she'll talk to you." As they left the house, the rain began, soft at first, then heavier. The road ahead was dark, winding, and filled with questions. Inside the car, Taehyung stared out the window. They tried to bury her, just like they tried to silence the crew. Jungkook gripped the wheel tighter. "Then let's unbury everything." Because now, they had more than a threat. They had a name, a survivor, and maybe, just maybe, answers that could bring the entire Shadow Empire crashing down. The cabin was buried in pine trees and silence. When Jungkook and Taehyung found Han Myri, she didn't look like someone broken. She looked like someone waiting. Older, yes, her voice softer, her eyes darker, but in her presence was something electric, like an ember still burning. "I knew it would be you too," she said, pouring tea without flinching. "The day you walked off that stage, I knew the world was finally listening." They talked until sunrise. Myri told them everything. How she'd been threatened, blacklisted, followed. How her manager mysteriously vanished the night she planned to go public. How a former friend in the industry tipped her off before she disappeared. But she hadn't just survived. She documented everything. Emails, contracts, secret payments, off-the-book staff death swept under NDA rugs. Dozens of artists bought into silence or driven to ruin. Hidden cameras, hidden ledgers. Even a secret committee of executives known only by initials, the Circle. "They've operated for years," she said. "Not just in one country. Everywhere. Every show where the lights shine too bright." Taehyung's voice was barely a whisper. "Let's burn it all down." The plan came together in shadows. Myri's files, encrypted and mirrored across hundreds of safe servers, were compiled into one explosive dossier, the stage files. Jungkook and Taehyung used their silence as a weapon, refusing interviews, building tension. When the media buzz peaked, they did the unthinkable. They live-streamed. No publicist, no filter, just them and Myri, "We're not here to perform," Jungkook said to the millions watching. "We're here to reveal the truth." Then they dropped the files, all of them. Names, dates, documents. The world exploded. The aftermath was chaos and reckoning. Global news ran the expose for weeks. Lawsuits erupted across borders. Multiple resignations. Investigations launched in 5 countries. Idol agencies fell like dominoes. Venues rewrote their contracts. Techs and dancers across the world unionized under the new Myri Accord, a global standard for ethical entertainment labor. Taehyung, in one of the few interviews they gave, said, "We didn't destroy the industry. We forced it to be honest." 1 year later, in a new city, a new stadium, a new beginning. A concert, this time organized by the crew, for the people behind the curtain. Jungkook and Taehyung took the stage not as idols, but as part of something bigger. Behind them, the screen flashed the faces of every name from the blacklist, every erased voice now restored. Myri joined them on stage, greeted with the kind of applause that vibrated bone. They sang only one song that night, a new one, written in secret. Its chorus was simple. "The spotlight's not ours. It belongs to the ones who held it up." As the final note faded, there were no fireworks, no confetti, just 60,000 people standing in silence, crying, healing, witnessing the first show in a new world. They tried to bury us in silence, but we grew roots there.